Hey guys, it's Quinn. In episode 18 of the fundraising series, we're going to be taking a look at a film that'll make you wonder what the hell was going on in Hollywood in 2004 that this was able to win Best Picture. 2004's Crash. Crash has an ensemble cast and a storyline which is done very much like Pulp Fiction, and that this film is completely non-linear. I have a rant to come, but I first want to note some of the positives in this film. To start, the plot is pretty much a bunch of flawed individuals who all either experience racism, are racist, or are just a mixture of both, and how through interactions with one another over the course of around 2 days, I think, they can grow and learn from one another. Based on this plot design, there are some really interesting, albeit limited, growth spurts for characters, especially because of the occupations that each of these characters have. For instance, there's a white cop in this film. There are several really tense, interesting moments in this film. Because of how unlinear the story is, to be able to create tension really out of the blue, which is what you have to do, in some of these scenes, it was impressive. Credit has to be given, I think, to the actors in this film for making the tension feel organic. The best scene in the film, where a white cop has to save this black woman that he had previously harassed, is a perfect example of these positives of tension and acting coming together very nicely. However, this film has several glaring holes in it. What was great about Pulp Fiction is, just to classify it into three simple things, is 1, the characters were interesting, 2, the storyline was very intimately interlinked, and 3, every plot point built on each other. In Crash, you have none of that. I want to break down each of these points just to demonstrate how big Crash failed in these regards. To start, the characters. Every single character in this film is boring. None of them have any sort of nuance to them whatsoever. As I mentioned at the front of the review, you can describe pretty much every character in this film as either 1, being a racist, 2, experiencing racism, or 3, a mixture. And because the characters are so thin and poorly developed in this regard, the interactions that they have with each other are just vapid. Case in point, the entire first hour of this film, in every single scene. I'm not being hyperbolic, I'm being literal here. In every single scene in the first hour of this film, the point of each scene is that someone will say something racist. That isn't a plot. That isn't character development. That's just a vignette of awkward scenes that don't develop anything in the way of themes or nuanced storytelling. And this is because the characters have nothing to them, so you don't have the ability to do anything really creative with them. This goes into the second point, which is the storytelling aspect. As I mentioned, there really isn't that much of a story here. It's just a web of people who barely know each other, experiencing racism or some other form of aggression. Let us take a really poignant plotline in this film and just be honest about it. There's a Hispanic locksmith in this film who just gets badgered by everyone. If we're being frank about his entire storyline, what happens to this character is that few people are shitty to him, and then someone tries to kill him, but the gun doesn't work. That's all that really happens to this character. Now, whether you've seen this film or not, does that sound like an actual storyline worth watching? No, it doesn't. And the problem is that film, overall, is just pretty much 10 characters who go through that level or less of plot development, who just happen to brush shoulders at some point. In other words, the film disguises the fact that there really isn't that much of a plot by presenting it non-linearly. But if you laid out linearly what happens to each of these characters, there's nothing interesting. And that comes to my final point, which is that the plotlines don't really interlink with one another. I'll explain it by how the film ends. The film ends with the camera just randomly panning up at some point and then showing the city of LA. Then the credits roll. It's a non-ending. There's no actual resolution to this film. And this is because none of the plot points really build towards a climax. It's just 2 hours of people being so forcefully racist and then realizing that racism is bad because they have an interaction with someone that sort of clears their head. Overall, I was really disappointed in this film because it was an Oscar winner. The way this film is written is so lazy, it's remarkable. Every single scene in the first hour is 2 people talking, and then someone just randomly deciding to throw out a slur. Because of this, there's no meat on the bones, so that when something profound actually happens, the audience doesn't care as much as it should because the emotional stakes just aren't there. This film hides behind the facade of tackling racism heads on as an excuse to create a film that has no structure, no real character development, and no theme outside of racism is bad, which is a message you can give more respect to than 10 half-baked one-dimensional characters. If you ever want to see what it would look like to have snow in LA, then give this film a cursory glance. But for everyone else, I think this film's a waste of time, so that's why I'm giving it a rating of don't watch this movie. This video is sponsored by a resident of Boston. This channel is committing to giving every American an equal opportunity in this country, which is why all proceeds will be donated to the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. If you're interested in sponsoring a future review video, please feel free to fill out the poll in the description below. Thank you for watching, and remember, black, white, left, and right, we're all in this together. I'll see you guys next time. Ciao.